Hello, people. Enjoy these true small-town scary stories. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment if you enjoy these types of videos. Let's get into the stories. Strange encounter in the woods. I'm currently visiting my grandma, and she lives in a small town with just a couple hundred people in it. I do small hikes daily here. We used to do them together, but because of the sunny weather today, she decided to stay home. Everything was going as usual, and I decided to do a small hike along this little path through the woods that my grandma had recommended to me. I also like to use these short moments of alone time to smoke a little, you know what, while enjoying the landscape. So I did smoke a little. After about 1 hour and 30 minutes of walking, something happened. I saw a man about 60 meters away from me walking in my direction. Note, this is not a very popular hiking trail, so it is actually quite rare to see somebody else, especially with these weather conditions. Everything still seemed normal at this point. As he came closer, I noticed him really staring at me as I awkwardly broke and re-entered eye contact. The closer he came, the more tense I felt. I have to add, I'm a man and can definitely defend myself, and I met a few other people on this path before where everything was and felt completely normal. This one was different. As I walked past him, I noticed a strange grin on his face. He had really bad teeth and was quite tall, and he walked in a way that really unsettled me. It was kind of awkward, and I decided to break the silence and said, "Hello." He didn't answer right away, but I could hear a very silent mumbling as he passed me. I don't really know how to describe this, but I felt like something was just off about him. I could just tell. I felt him looking at me after we were about 10 meters away from each other, so I turned around and I absolutely catched him staring at me and not even walking, just standing there. He quickly turned around as if he didn't want me to notice that he was still watching. Remember, I smoked a J about 20 minutes earlier, so this all really freaked me out. I tried to put it aside as paranoia from the weed. After about 20 minutes of following the trail, I noticed that I am walking into a dead end, because I previously took a wrong turn, so I had to turn around the exact way that strange man from earlier went. I decided to pull myself together and distract myself with some music as I headed back. But I just couldn't get that previous encounter and the fact that I had to go in his direction again out of my head. I kept walking for about 40 minutes. At this point, I thought to myself that the chances of meeting him again were slim and that I should just focus on getting home, as I began feeling very tired from the constant sun. I also had this thought, no one would ever find me here, which is a very scary concept in my opinion. I was making progress, but then I saw someone sitting on a small bench right next to the path. It was him. I felt like I was in a goddamn horror movie. Thoughts rushed through my head. Did he wait for me? Did he know about the dead end and knew that I will have to head back? I was kind of panicking, but decided to keep my cool. The bench was placed in a way that he could not see me yet, but would have a perfect look at me facing my back when I would walk past him. As I came closer, my heart began to beat in a way it didn't in years. The kind like you just ran a marathon and came through the finish line I was freaking out. As I came closer, he noticed me and began looking at me over his shoulder, and there it was again, that same grin he gave me earlier. I had goosebumps. I kept walking at a normal pace and didn't go a second without looking behind me as I walked past. He kept staring in a strange way. He was just so creepy, and I had this fear that he would suddenly get up and chase me. After he kept looking right into my soul, I started slowly jogging, which turned into a sprint. I ran as quickly as I could until I could not see him anymore. Going home, I could not get all this out of my head. This really startled me. Please don't write this off as misjudgment because I smoked weed earlier. This was real. There was something not right with him. I could just sense it. I have never felt this way about anyone I've ever met. Thank you if you've come this far in the video. But I have a few more stories to tell you guys, if you dare to listen. This happened to me about a number of years ago, and I have never forgotten. One night, as I was lying in bed, trying to get some sleep, my black cat Sabrina scratched at my bedroom door to be let out. Tired but mostly awake, I slipped out of bed and shuffled to my door and let her go out. However, she looked at me and guided me to the side door to go outside. I went to the door and opened it, then pushed the screen door out of the way so she could leave. However, after I closed the screen door, I happened to look out across the way, which happens to be the side of the neighbor's house. In the driveway, blocking a bit of their house, is my dad's 1995 Chevy truck. On the other side of my dad's truck, I saw a strange figure standing by the hood. I could only see its shoulders and up. It had a larger head than its body from what I could see. Its neck was thin, and its shoulders were bony-looking. Whatever it was had two large, empty eye sockets where eyes should be, but weren't. They were pitch black, like two voids against its pale skin. Now, the rest of the face I could never forget. It looked like the upper half of its face was covered in skin, and the lower it went toward its jaws, it looked shredded up. Where the jaw was located was complete bone, and it had a wide, toothy grin as it just stood there and seemed to be looking right at me. Mind you, I wear glasses to see distances, and I thought maybe I was seeing some kind of blur of the bushes or something from the neighbor's house. So I squinted my eyes to get a better look. It made it worse. I saw even more details of the creature than I did before squinting. Everything about its appearance became more clear and detailed. The texture of the skin, the wrinkles, the bits of torn-up looking flesh. There was no mistaking what I saw now. Terrified, I closed the side door and locked it. I was breathing heavily as my heart raced in my chest. Even then, I tried to reason with myself that maybe what I saw wasn't real, but I couldn't shake it. I know what I saw. Still scared, I ran into my room and jumped into bed. I was in my 30s, yet I took my blankets and hid under the covers like a kid. After all these years, I suddenly felt the way I used to feel as a child when I woke up to vivid night terrors. That fear of not being able to escape the horrors of my imagination. Feeling completely alone and vulnerable, even though my parents were across the way in their bedroom. As I hid under the blankets, I suddenly heard long, continuous scratches on my wall by where the creature was seen. It was like it was in my room and running a nail along my bumpy bedroom wall. I could hear the nail lightly thump each time it hit them. My panicking grew, and I felt more and more at the mercy of childhood trauma. I started to cry and tried to talk myself out of this fear that gripped me. Maybe this thing fed on fear, I thought to myself. Maybe it was getting a rise out me and using my fear for its enjoyment. I tried to calm down and tell myself that everything was okay. As I was starting to relax, the scratching finally stopped and everything went quiet. After all I had been through and seen, I continued to try and convince myself that I was still seeing things. The next night, as the cat wanted to go outside again, and I reluctantly looked in the location of where the creature had stood behind the hood of my dad's truck. Nothing in the area looked like the creature at all, not even any of the features. That's when I settled with myself that what I saw was real, and that realization scared me all the more. I never want to see that thing again, and I hope it never comes back. How my friend and I were stalked for years and nearly kidnapped. First part of this story got deleted, so I'm going to shorten it. Basically, a summer camp me and my friend started to attend. In 2019, does surveys every summer based on the topic we'll be discussing so we get better public speaking and a more generalized opinion from others in the area. Me and my friend teamed up with 2 counselors and hit the town. Our last stop was a Walmart, and we talked to a bunch of different people. The most memorable was the second to last, an older man that asked for our names and all about us after he finished answering our questions. At the time, we were both 13, with hardly any concept of stranger danger, so we gladly answered about ourselves. Anyway, a few days later, an account popped up on our friend requests called Ed Patsis. The account liked a bunch of old posts, commented a buccino of fire and rose emojis, and called us hot and sexy on our posts. It got to the point where they started to send pics. So me and my friend ended up blocking the account. Only a few days later, the account was permanently deleted. It didn't show up in our searches for it. That's why we thought it was the end of it. It was not. When we finally got back to school in August, we basically forgot the event altogether. Yet again, this time on both of our Facebook accounts, we got a notice from someone named Ed Patsis, wanting to be our friend. Immediately blocked that account again, but not before they had already commented lewd things on my baby pictures, commented on how pretty my baby blonde hair was, how I looked good in short dresses, etc. After that, we both talked to our parents about the situation, and other than keeping our accounts private, there wasn't much else we could really do. The cop shrugged and said just to take the app down completely, but hey, we're teens. Of course we didn't do that. Over the years, till around the end of 2021, this man kept sending friend requests from different accounts with similar variations of their names, which was a bit stupid, but whatever. Though at the beginning of 2022, this is where it starts to get really creepy. Accounts with the names and pictures of our friends started showing up in our notifications, so obviously we added them thinking it was our friends. We were wrong. Almost immediately, most of our posts had likes or comments on them from this account, and there were multiple DMs of pics to both of us. We blocked the account again. This became a reoccurring cycle. An account with friends' info, pictures, and mutual friends would get hacked, stolen, duplicated, etc., just so they could friend us again and again without us worrying too much about it. Finally, it got to the point we stopped adding people from our school at all, even friends. The final time this happened was in summer of 2022. The swarm of fake accounts had stopped roughly 2 months prior, and seeing as this friend request looked legit by a school friend, I decided to try it out. My friend didn't, she was still wary, but I decided to give it a shot. The compromise was to fully delete our socials and get new ones, if this account turned out the same. I was definitely a stupid 17-year-old, but try not to judge me too harshly. But this account didn't spam our pictures, didn't DM us, pics, just interacted with us like any normal school kid would, like here and there on new posts, like on a story posted, never commented on posts. So, finally, we thought it was over. Ha ha ha. Wrong. Strange things started to happen and become more of an intentional thing than a coincidence. I would post a picture of me and a friend at the park. A couple minutes later, a white truck pulled up in the lot, eerily close to my car driver's side door, but we tried not to think too much of it. There were still a few spaces over. Me and my friend were in the swings, basically straight line of sight of the parking lot. The truck lights remained on, pointed at us, for a long time. It got to the point that me and my friend finally started getting worried and anxious. So we hopped up from the swings and decided to take laps around the park instead. The car was far too close to mine for us to be comfortable chancing getting to it in time. Mind you, it was about 10 p.m. at night. So we were the only ones there. We waited and roamed the park for nearly an hour before the truck finally drove away. That's when we raced to my car and I drove home, looking behind me frequently just in case. This happened in early June, and it kept happening. I didn't really notice it, thought it was a one-off occurrence. It never dawned in my head that it happened after I posted pictures or said where I was with friends. But I started to see a white truck just about anywhere I posted about, even one that would wait outside my high school when I posted a story about my walk to my mom's store only a mile from our school. Again, young and dumb, I didn't think the worst of it. I thought it was parent waiting for a kid, plus there is a bunch of people that own all kinds of variations of white trucks in my town. So I never put much worrying in to see them all the time. My friend never mentioned any white truck, and if we were together, we rarely saw any of them. But I started to get nervous of them. After one time I was walking to my mom's store, I decided to take a glance at the driver of the truck that sat near the car line every day after school. It was the same, if not a bit older man, from our Walmart survey trip of 2019. It was bizarre, definitely. We were never expecting to see him again, especially since we met him in a few towns over from our own. Yet, lo and behold, he was right there. That's when I walked, probably ran actually, to my mom's store. This kept happening, and I finally knew I was being stalked after seeing him that first time because I saw him everywhere on foot. I'll fast forward to the last bit that happened on the last day of our shared summer camp in late July 2023. At this point, I was still 17, and since I was older than most of the new campers, I might as well have been considered a staff member. I drove kids to camp and home every night, and they paid me for the gas money, so I was cool with doing it. Didn't bother me, since they were in the same town as me, and there was others farther away the counselors typically drove home. This day, I posted all the last day campfire pictures right before I left, so I could try and save my phone that was suffering from glitches, lack of data, and didn't let me call others because my storage was too full. So I photo dumped a bunch of stuff, but it didn't fix the problem. My phone was essentially broken in all but name. It hardly worked, and I bought my current phone after this occurrence. On top of this, one of the older campers that visited on the last day, 19M, didn't have a phone either, but he was also in the car with me. In the back seat, I had 3 campers. One didn't have a phone either, and the other 2 were dead. One was charging theirs with my carport. But we didn't think much of it, just turned on the radio full blast and gunned it back home. As I pulled off the back road of our camp up to the intersection, the light turned green, and we went forward. In the lane next to us was a white truck that kept turning its brights on and off. It was a bit weird, so I sped up, but I didn't think much of it. Side note, my best friend, let's call her Ann for this, has a baby. Ann had her kid at 16, so at this point her kid was nearly a year old, still very fussy in car rides and such. This becomes important later, because Ann was there for the last day of camp, too. She left right before we did when her baby became cranky. Eventually, I don't see the white truck behind me anymore, and I slow down a bit. It was nearly 9:30 p.m. at this point, late enough for the highway between our towns to be essentially empty. I have this back road that is a bit curvy, that leads close to my house and directly to a rich neighborhood. It's the streets I typically take to get back to my house from camp if I had no one to take home. And everyone that was a regular in my car called it the detour. It was quite pretty, with a bunch of full evergreen trees and wildlife. The kids, not really kids, but they acted like it, 13F, 15M, 15M in the back, were begging me to go on the detour since it was the last day of camp. So I caved in and hit on my blinker, turning right onto the back road. Now, listen, I'm not the safest person out there, don't judge me. I'm still basically a kid, too. But all the ones in the back love to hang out the windows on the back road, so I let them stick their heads out the sunroof, sit on the windowsill while holding the bars on top of my car. I went slow, under 10 miles per hour, just so they could do it and not worry about them getting hurt. I mean, there was no one on the back roads. Cops never camped out on these streets, and I was going under the speed limit by like 20. So there wasn't really any harm in letting them stick out the windows. Eventually, I let them bully me into taking them around the rich neighborhoods that had cool water fountains and covered bridges on their streets. Apparently, one of the covered bridges caved in, so we had to go round on this super narrow street right next to a large drainage ditch at least 15 to 20 feet deep. As we are going around it, a car comes up behind us. I assumed it was one of the people who lived in the neighborhood, so I was going to speed up to let them get to their house. Finally, we came to the four-way of the rich people street. Straight forward was a dead end, which is what I originally was going to do. To the left was the broken covered bridge, and to the right was a back roundabout that would take us back to the beginning of the street. But it had no houses, lights back there because the neighborhood is still being built. But let's call him Jake, 19M, told me to go right. Mind you, one of the campers was sticking their body out of my skylight from the back seat, so I couldn't see out of my review mirror. I didn't really want to, but I trusted his instincts and turned right. As soon as I did, I started to hear honking behind me. I was a bit startled, and so were the kids in the back seat. I glance out in my side view mirrors, but I can't see anything past bright LED lights. I thought it was just because I took too long, so I sped up a bit after I turned right. There was a hook at the end of a hill on this back street, and it makes you tug the steering wheel pretty hard to stay on the road, especially in the dark. The car behind me turned right too. They started flashing their LED brights, honking loudly, and had rolled down windows screaming at us. They kept trying to get in the lane next to us and bump into my car to run us off the road. That is when I knew this was serious. Instantly, I started screaming at the kids in the back seat to sit down, buckle up, and roll up their windows. They barely managed to do that by the time I hit the bend at the end of the hill really hard and gunned it off the street, driving around the drainage ditch with little problem. I've done it multiple times. There was no phone in the car to call anyone, least of all the police, so I just ended up speeding down the back streets as the car chased me, trying to run me off the road multiple times. When we came upon sharp corners, they slowed down. That told me they didn't know the area well, which I used to my advantage. As I was approaching a stop sign, for me to go left or right, my house was to the right, so left it was, I yelled at Jake to check my right, because I'm not stopping for the sign. I sped past it, the car. This is about the time I noticed it was a fucking white truck. Tried to hit my bumper again, and I swerved into someone's yard. Grass was damaged the next day when I drove past it. I booked it down the street, hitting every turn as fast as possible, and eventually I thought I lost the truck. I sped past my high school and onto the highway again, where we got off in the first place. I didn't see the truck behind us, and we were all still freaked out. I took a right to go on to another main way and passed by a closed gas station on the way. Very important in a moment. I stopped at a gas station and handed the kids in the back some cash for them to go get themselves a drink and a snack to help them calm down. None of them were crying. Thank God, the adrenaline junkies they are. They thought it was more exciting than anything. I told Jake to go watch them in the store and make sure they didn't do anything stupid while I filled up my gas tank. We waited at the gas station for about 20 minutes before I went back onto the road to take them home, just in case. I asked them if they had saw the car at all while they were hanging out the windows, and only one of them said they thought they did, but the truck's lights were off. It was the same truck from a town or so over, from the intersection in front of the back road to our camp. They followed us for nearly 25 minutes. After I dropped all of them off, I was still a bit shaky and decided to try and see if my phone would call someone that I could talk to about what happened. The only contact that would load was Anne, since she was the last person I had talked to on our phones. With a stroke of luck, my phone actually let me call. She picked up, but all I could hear from her side of the line was her crying. Obviously panicking, I asked her what was wrong, and lo and behold, she shares a story eerily similar to what just happened to me. Apparently, Anne's baby started crying so loud she could barely focus on the road. So she pulled into the closed gas station I mentioned earlier, right outside our high school. I sped past. She was giving her kid their bottle when a white truck pulled into the lot. Immediately she was weary because it was closed, and she was right. Less than 30 seconds later, this truck parked horizontally in front of Anne's car to block her in. She immediately started the car again, locked her doors, and pulled off over the grass curb, blocking her from the street. She was not chancing her baby at all. Anne told me the only thing she remembered was the man that we had saw years ago in that Walmart, his eyes staring at her like she was just a piece of meat for him to have. As she raced home, the truck caught up to her. She turned on her back road, running out of gas, and the truck started to flash its lights, honk, run her off the road the entire time. But a couple streets before hers, a little red car pulled out in front of her and started to brake check her as the white truck tried to hit her from behind. It was a mess. She took a chance, sped up, and swung onto her street to at least loose the red car. The truck booked it after her. Apparently, both of her older brothers were waiting outside for her with some of their friends to help her bring in stuff for her baby. Upon seeing this as she pulled into her driveway, the white truck sped off. If her brothers weren't outside, that would have been a different story. But anyway, long story short, the truck that follows me all the way back had an accomplice in a red car that followed my friend Anne. When they couldn't catch me, they went for her. Both me and Jake suspected that because I didn't go onto the dead end where the man could cut me off, that's probably why it suddenly got violent so quickly. This story ended when the man in the white truck and the other in the little red car were found a town over when there was footage taken of them attempting to kidnap a 7-year-old off a porch and being attacked by their dog. Along with this, we found that there had been several sightings of a white truck around our town following others doing similar things days after it first happened to us, following cars that had a similar description to my friends and our cars. Our reports were officially filed after we saw the information of the car on Facebook, along with the identity of the man that had stalked us for years. It took years to get rid of them, but we now don't have to worry about the men anymore. Thank you so much for watching.